Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time we upload new videos. I would like to reach out and say a huge thank you to those of you who have supported Cryptids Roost financially. We pray the good Lord replenishes you abundantly, and to those of you who will later on. We pray the Lord bless you as you do so. And also a huge thank you to everyone for always supporting the channel with your likes, comments and shares as well. It is all very much appreciated. God bless you all. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. The Blackrock Chapel Horror. Part 2. This awesome series is written by Corpse Child. If you would like to read more of their works, the Reddit link to their profile will be below in the description. Father Caraway wandered about in the ever-extended void of subconscious. Unable to feel or perceive anything anymore, he wondered if he had indeed perished through either the means of the serpent's venom or the trauma of the crash down the spiralling stone stairs. Am I dead? Father Caraway pondered as he continued to survey the void. Is this the entry to the kingdom of heaven? Nay. A monotone voice called to him, answering the father's internal query. Caught by surprise, he spun around to face the speaker. To his horror, the priest stood face to face with the ginger-haired Irish barmaiden whom he had seen hanging by the neck in the bell tower. She stood before him in the dark subconscious plane completely bare, her milky white skin and grassy green hued irises projecting the visage of life. The entrance to heaven is closed to us, as it always was. Father Caraway closed his eyes, trying vainly to assure himself that this wasn't real. This is real, Father, unlike the horse shit you spouted about God's forgiveness. Father Caraway struggled to attempt rebuttal to the spectre's abrasive claim as utter dread clouded his abilities of reason. Good God forgives all who repent. The phantom let out a scolding laugh that echoed throughout the void. The father felt compelled to cover his ears as the chuckling dissolved into what he could only perceive as a cacophony of tortured wails that appeared to emanate from all directions in the encroaching purgatory. If that was true, Father, why not repent yourself for your continued heresies? The elder priest found himself, amidst his immediate sense of shock and dread, in the ghoulish ethereal plane he found himself within, confused at the ghost's insinuation. What are you talking about? What falsehood have I spoken? As soon as the defiant query left Father Caraway's lips, his blood chilled as two serpents began to take form in the dark void. His jaw went helplessly slack as the serpents, one whose scales were as dark as the nightmare plane it birthed from, the other whose scales were the hue of burning embers reminiscent of the depths of Tartarus, slithered their way to the maiden's feet. As the malign creature coiled themselves to her legs, the phantom spoke again, her vocals taking on a tormented ethereal echo.
If God's forgiveness is divine, how are we so many that are condemned?
Before any rebuttal could be offered, Father Caraway's tongue froze and his lips trembled as the depraved vipers journeyed their way up and around the maiden's nude form. His eyes widened at the unholy display enacted before him in petrified disbelief as he began to witness the serpent start to violate her. The phantom maiden began to moan with unrighteous pleasure as the dark-scaled serpent inserted itself head first in between her legs. The crimson serpent coiled around her torso and seeming to fondle her. The moans of sinful pleasure began to dissolve into screams of damning agony, as if emanating from the throats of many as the apparition appeared to near her climactic release. Revolted as the elder priest was at the abhorrent nightmare, he felt as though the clutches of some manner of malign will forced him to witness the events to their completion.
Come now, Father, why deprive yourself? I see the way ye be watching. You'd like to fuck me, wouldn't ye?
Father Caraway, now bearing the strength of will over his body, clamped his eyelids shut and closed his ears as the wraith-like voice continued through his head. When he opened his eyes, now full with tears induced by the abysmal madness, he saw that the phantom maiden's appearance had decayed into the same necrotic image he spied in the bell tower at the peak of Blackrock Chapel, complete with the word Faushin carved into her bosom. "God give me strength!" Father Caraway cried aloud, futilely attempting to free himself from the dread that crippled him. The wraith let out a devious cackle that echoed through the black void before, in the same voice she formerly bore in life. She lashed out, "Listen to ye, still thinking Christ cares for ye? Poor little lamb, for ye truly have lost your way." Another ghastly wail of pleasure rang from the phantom maiden's lips as rivulets of dark warm blood ran down her complexionless legs before crying out in the echoing and apparitional voice of agony.
There is no relief in heaven, no damnation in hell, no forgiveness, no damnation.
The burning red serpent began to work its way from her mouth as the abomination's vocals became entirely inhuman altogether. His blood now froze in mortal terror at his seemingly inescapable fate at the hands of the malign entity before him. Father Caraway lifted a trembling hand to clutch the crucifix around his neck as he again attempted to choke out the Lord's Prayer. The elder priest was cut off before he could even finish the utterance of "Hallowed be thy name," when legions of painful screams of perpetual sorrow reached a deafening pitch that echoed from around him, as well as within him, forcing his eyes closed from the strain and his hands to reflexively cover his ears. Through his fright-induced tears, the elder priest opened his eyes to witness the torso of the unholy phantom begin wriggling, as the protrusions of other human faces began to form themselves into her pale, decayed flesh. When the writhing mass of faces took form within the phantom maiden's body, they cried out in unison in wails so deafening Father Caraway was forced to his knees, eyes clamped tight and his palms covering his ears.
"No salvation!"
the tortured ethereal voices screamed out as one.
"Only condemnation awaits us all, for all are debased."
The words echoed through the elder priest's shattered mind. No salvation! He tried to hide away the thought, as to attempt to keep his psyche from complete collapse. With great strain, Father Caraway opened his eyes to a small squint, merely enough to perceive from a rudimentary level the mortifying sight of a multitude of serpents advancing upon him from all directions, just as they had in the bell chamber in the chapel's peak. Stripped of any will to mentally or physically resist, Father Caraway watched helplessly as long, writhing black and red serpents exited the mouth of the tormented screaming faces that were conjoined to the abomination's body. "Though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, thy rod and thy staff," he faintly whispered as he finally resigned himself to whatever damning fate that awaited him at the whims of the abhorrent phantom. Just before the darkness could overtake him, however, the elder priest found himself lying in cold sweat within his bedchamber. His eyes were stitched wide open. The first image he perceived was that of a young maiden. Still in a state of perpetual shock, Father Caraway stared at the maiden before him, attempting to distinguish the presence before him now from that of the wraith that menaced him in his slumber. When his eyes studied the olive complexion of her skin, coupled with the long brunette hair beneath her headrobe, he realised that the maiden standing before him now was none other than the budding sister Meredith. As his vision slowly strained itself into clear composition, he could see the young fledgling eyes glistening with tears and her face was red. "Oh, Father, thank God you're awake! I thought you were lost forever!" exclaimed Sister Meredith through tear-filled relief. In an exhausted voice, Father Caraway questioned the young fledgling nun as to where he was and what had happened, for in the current moment he could not immediately recollect any of the previous phenomena outside of the demented nightmare he'd only just narrowly escaped from. "It was awful. After I came back with the authorities for the woman we found in the bell tower." She took in a shuddering breath before continuing, her voice cracking again with frightful tears. "We found you sprawled unconscious on the stairs. You kept muttering the Lord's Prayer and something about serpents and poison. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find Father Edwards. The body was missing too. Me and a few of the other sisters moved you into your bed. You were out for most of the night and into this morning. I only awoke you when you began thrashing about." A tumultuous wave of dread washed over the elder priest's face, as all at once the horrors of the previous afternoon came crashing back into his memory like a devastating avalanche. "Oh, Father, I'm afraid," cried young Sister Meredith. "Something unholy is happening in the chapel. What are we going to do?" Father Caraway winced and drew a deep breath, once again grasping the right of his forehead, attempting to ease both the throbbing pulses inside as well as regain some semblance of composure of his abilities of reason. His head was drowning in a black whirlpool of insanity and cold, crippling, unforgiving dread. "What am I going to do?" Bitter question crossed Father Caraway's mind, followed by another far more disheartening query. What could I do? Father Caraway began hopelessly attempting to connect the ghoulish events to possibly identify the source of the abominable phenomena and, with the aid of the divine, combat it. "Archbishop Marcus," Father Caraway whispered, unconsciously vocalising his thoughts as his mind travelled back to the encounter in the chapel's peak. "What was that, Father?" questioned the fledgling nun, unsure yet and hopeful that his response to her might be the foundation of a plan to either drive away or to flee the evil that presently menaced them. Awakened from his thought-induced trance by Sister Meredith's voice, Father Caraway began to rouse himself from his bed. "Listen, child," he gestured to the young sister in an exhausted voice that bore the nature of a man far more elder than he. "Fetch my priest garb and my overcoat." "Where are you going, Father?" pressed the young fledgling nurse, unsure as to the elder priest's intentions. "There may be one that could provide us with aid. He's dealt with many an evil in his day. He'll know what to do. Now do as I say, child. Make haste." Young fledgling Sister Meredith was slightly puzzled, but simply offered a small bow of her head before making her way to the wardrobe. Father Caraway struggled as he slowly moved his aching body, still weak from the serpent's potent venom. When his legs finally found the strength to stand, he slowly trudged over to the vanity mirror that hung to the right of the entrance of the bedchamber. It was an average-sized mirror that was joined on either side by vanilla-scented candles that would provide small tastes of added luminescence to entirety of the bedchamber. Above the vanity mirror hung a shining silver crucifix bearing a moulded image of Christ's executed body fixed upon it. Gazing at his image in the aged mirror, Father Caraway felt a sense of nausea creep upon him, as where in reality he had lived only 45 years, the face that returned his gaze from the mirror had the appearance of one who had lived closer to 30 years longer. The reflection in the mirror bore thin silver strands of hair, unlike the thick, vibrant brunette that he bore outside of the mirror. The skin of the doppelganger's face also appeared horned and concaved, as though the flesh it bore was too excessive for its bones. The wearied elder priest became unnerved at the sight, tugging at the skin on his face to reassure himself that tactile perception that the image in the mirror was indeed some manner of visual hallucination. It was then that the reflection began to shift within the mirror's confines. The face that posed itself as the elder priest began to offer a more sinister grin, while the rest of the room surrounding the being began to take on a scarlet-red filter. For a moment his blood chilled at the sight of his reflection acting outside of his own will. Placing his palms over his eyes, he softly whispered to himself, "No, it's not real. God be with me." "Old fool!" Father Caraway looked once again at the doppelganger from his palms and saw the sinister reflection of himself begin to decay, the loose skin hanging onto his skull now falling away to expose the skeleton underneath. "God cannot save us." flashed the vision in the mirror. His jaw fell as he watched the image in the mirror slowly continue to devolve into a more grotesque appearance. More of the false reflection's flesh slowly decayed and peeled away, as if it were but mere paper to reveal the skull, bearing jagged teeth that could rip and crush flesh and bone alike with ease, without worry of dulling. The sockets of the demon were dark and cavernous voids that swallowed all semblance of light, save only for a tiny crimson speck in the middle of either socket, respectively, that appeared to serve as its retinas. "Let me ask you something, Father," chided the beast in the mirror, voicing the elder priest's title in a tone of mocking reverence. Father Caraway covered his ears to attempt to resist the abomination's lying tongue. "Why did your so-called loving Father in heaven execute his own son?" Father Caraway screamed in his head at the abhorrent creature to silence its blasphemies, to no avail. Christ himself was no more than a holy bastard. The words crashed as boulders in an avalanche in Father Caraway's head, motivating him to press his palms tighter to his ears and tightly closing his eyes. His execution achieved nothing more than penance for his birth as such. The last exclamation rang out in his mind with such ferocity that he could feel his knees attempting to buckle beneath him, as if he were being weighed down by an unseen force. "You know it's true, Father. Just look at me. I am humankind. In its purest state, we are the condemned. Humankind itself, Father, are the very beasts that were sentenced to damnation. Salvation is only for the lie you spread." Nearing his wit's end, Father Caraway slammed his fists upon the surface of the vanity and shouted defiantly at the apparition, "Enough!" The mounted crucifix, shaken from the tremor, fell from its place above the mirror and landed onto the vanity surface in front of him. Hearing the faint clatter of the crucifix's descent, the elder priest found himself awakened from yet another trance. He saw that instead of the detestable spectre that occupied it, its confines only moments before, his reflection revealed the middle-aged man that existed in reality. Father Caraway again closed his eyes and began drawing in deep breaths to relax himself once again. Upon reopening his eyes, he decided to refix the fallen symbol back to its original perchance above the vanity mirror. As he held it, however, a searing pain shot through the palm of his hand that caused him to drop it again, letting out a cry of pain. Tightly grasping his right hand with his left from reflex, he gazed once again down at the image of Christ's sacrifice as it began to glow a hot burning orange. The oppressive odour of brimstone permeated the air within the bedchamber as the elder priest saw, in its revitalised terror, a small stream of blood begin to ooze from his wrists, feet and head of the mould of Christ. "Are you all right, Father?" Father Caraway spun around and was met with a slightly relieving sight of the young fledgling nun, priest's garb and overcoat in hand. "I heard shouting. Did something happen?" "No, child," replied the elder priest, unsure how to explain the unholy phenomena that occurred in her absence. "Everything is fine, but there's no more time to be lost. Come now, you will accompany me to the Archbishop's home. He may be the only one who could help us." Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help to promote this channel more. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit any stories you've written. You can submit your stories or encounters either there or send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. All the links are below. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit, and you'll also find me on Discord. If you would like to support this channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.